What's up guys, Dylan Codes here, and welcome to the first video in a quick little series of videos I'm going to do showing you guys a tutorial on how to make this weather application in Python using Tkinter. So here are some of the features it has. You can search locations. For example, if we wanted to know New York, we could get New York's weather. We can even get search suggestions and display all sorts of weather information such as, the current temperature or what it currently feels like, the wind speed, etc., and even change from Fahrenheit to Celsius. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start the tutorial. Alrighty, so in this video, we are going to set up our project folder structure so that we can start writing our code, and then we are going to get to work starting the basics for the GUI part of the application. So let's go ahead and get into it. And real quick, I'm going to mention I'm using VS Code. You can see I've opened up a new project folder here in VS Code. We're going to start off by creating 3 different folders within our project here. And by project, I just mean a big, a top level folder. But our 3 folders, we're going to create our model, view, and controller. And the reason why we create model, view, and controller is because we are going to use the model view controller style of application programming, kind of to keep our code organized as we go along here. So model view controller, and then at the top level, we're going to write a file called, well, you could call it weatherapp.py, main.py. I'm going to call it main.py, and it's not going to contain much code, but it will be the entry point into our program. And in fact, we're not even going to write anything right now. We'll come back to that. So within our controller, we are going to make a Python file called controller.py. Very creative, original, I know. In our model folder, we are going to create a file called weather.py. So this will be the file containing our weather class. That'll give us our weather data. And in our view, we are going to create our GUI file. So this will be view.py. In order for Python to know that these 3 folders are or what they call packages, meaning they contain Python files that can be imported by other files, we need to add a file called init py to each of these, just so that Python knows we can import the Python modules to other parts of our project. So init __.py, and one more time __init.py. Very important, those 2. Nothing needs to go inside of them, but they just need to exist. All right, very good. So let's go ahead and start creating our GUI. In order to start this, we're going to start basic, and kind of as we go along, we're just going to start adding more and more parts. But as long as you follow along, shouldn't be too confusing. So for our GUI, we are going to go ahead and get started by importing our modules here. So we're going to import Tkinter because we're going to use Tkinter for our application. And from tkinter.constants, we will import everything, and this will be useful for making our GUI look nice. And instead of using the basic Tkinter widgets, we're going to use the TTK widgets so that they look, a little more updated with the times here. So from tkinter.ttk, import star. Very nice. All right, so let's go ahead and start writing our class. So we're going to write a class called view, and it's going to inherit from the Tkinter class. So inside of our parentheses here, tk or tkinter.tk. And so now we are tk, and there's other ways to do this, but this is just the way that I'm going to do it. So basically, this is what would normally, our class, our object is the root of our application. And so within our class here, we'll start with our init. And just off the bat here, before adding anything fancy, we're just going to get the program up and running, very basics. And then, like I said, we'll add on from there. So we are just going to call super, and super refers to tkinter.tk. Dot init. So now we are ourselves a Tkinter object. And let's just go ahead and give ourselves a size. So geometry, I don't know. I don't know what we want for now. Let's just try 700 x 500, and we can change it later. And then we're also going to write a main method. So def main self, obviously pass in, and we're going to call self dot main loop. And so that will get our Tkinter application to run. Now, where this is going to get called is within our controller class, because the way model view controller works is view just puts the GUI on the screen, but it doesn't make anything happen. The controller class is what handles all the changes in the GUI. So if we click a button, the controller class changes the GUI. So let's go ahead and start writing the controller class. So we can say from view, and that is our view folder, dot view, as in view.py, import the view class. And so now let's write a class for our controller. And in its init function, we are going to simply just say that our view attribute is going to be equal to a new instance of view, which is the class that we created here and we'll be adding on to later. And down here, we're also going to write a main function for controller, and all that needs to be passed is self, and we'll just call self.view.main, like so. And then finally, I know this seems like it's a very long way to go in the beginning, but it's going to make sense later on. So then from controller, and this is in our main.py file here. So from controller.controller import controller, and here's where we're going to start our program. So we'll say if name equals to main, and this is basically just like writing a main function in other languages. If name equals main, and this basically makes it so multiple instances of our program can't be popping up once. That's why we need to write if name equals main controller, create a new instance of controller, and call its main function. So what this will do is it'll make a controller object and call its main function, and so that will call the view main function, and run the main loop. So let's go ahead and run it. And when you run the program, if you're in VS Code and you try running from controller or weather or view, nothing's really going to happen because no code is being called. So you have to run from the main.py. And here we go. All right, so here is the basics of our Tkinter window. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to add everything into the GUI, and then we're going to style it and make it look nice later. All right, so we can go ahead and start. Now, eventually, we're going to be adding to our init function here, but for now, we are going to write some other functions just to break up the building of the code. So basically, the different sections of our GUI are going to be broken up into different frames, and each of these frames is going to go into our main frame. So real quick, we're just going to create a self.mainFrame, and that's going to be equal to a frame from self, and that'll be good. And then some different frames that we might create, for example, could be, let's see, a create frame search bar. So we'll create one frame for our search bar, and then we can, let's create a frame for the weather info. And then eventually we can also create a frame for the controls. So we can control from Fahrenheit to Celsius. All right, so let's just get started with this, and we can add anything else later if we would like to. So for this frame search bar, let's go ahead and create self.frame search bar, and that is going to be plopped into self.mainFrame. Okay, and to this frame, let's go ahead and we're going to add a combo box. So self.combo search is going to be equal to and I just realized I made an error up here. The self.search bar should be equal to a frame self.mainFrame. Okay, so combo box, and that's going to go into frame search bar. And let's see, for this, we're going to need to give it a text variable. So what the text variable is it allows us to know what text is entered into different labels or different entries throughout different points in our programs using some sort of variable available through Tkinter. So what we can do is we can import from, or up here we will import from Tkinter, import string var, and so we'll say that our variable search is equal to string var, and that's all we need to put for now. So text variable is going to be equal to var search, self.var search, I should say, and this will be a self dot up here. And next to it, of course, we should put a button. So a self.button search is equal to button, self.frame search bar, and it does not need to have a text variable, but it will just have some plain old text. And the difference is the text variable we need to access later, but the text we do not need to access later. So we'll just put search, of course, in parentheses, search. And that's looking pretty good to me. Eventually, we'll give it a command, but we'll get to that later after we build most of the GUI. And let's go ahead and pack these on. So self.combo search dot pack. And pack just shoves it into its frame. And then self.button search also dot pack. And then up here under mainFrame, we can go ahead and say, well, obviously we want to pack in the mainFrame. And then underneath it, nope, that's the wrong place for that there. We'll call self.frame search bar dot pack. And then up here, we just need to make sure that we call self.create frame search bar. So fingers crossed, this shall be working. So we'll go up here to main.py and run our application. And here you can see that we have our search bar. Doesn't really do anything yet. We have our search button, and I think, how about we go ahead and throw that search button next to the search bar. So let's go ahead and say this button search dot pack side is equal to right. And then we'll also say for this combo search, the pad X, let's give it 10 pixels. So if we go ahead and run our application once again, for some reason that didn't work. Let's go ahead and figure out what's going on. So for this combo search, we can try side is equal to left. Let's see if that fixes anything. It does. Okay. So there we go, side by side, and we have the basics of our application. All right, so now let's go ahead and we can add in the frame info. And so this will be like the current info, you know, maybe the location we searched, the current temperature, and perhaps the icon. The icon that we, you know, of the current conditions. So here in this create frame info, we'll say self.frame info is equal to frame, and we'll add that to our main frame as well. And let's see, let's make a self.label temp, and we can go ahead and add some more search text variables here. So var temp, that'll be equal to a string var. And oops, let's go ahead and organize our code a little bit. So we'll just say comment variables, and then we'll say down here are frames. Okay, so label temp is going to be equal to a label that is going to be attached to self.frame info, and its text variable will be var self.var temp, so that we can change that later. We'll have a label location, and so there's another variable we got to add. Self.var location is equal to string var. So that's going to be equal to a label self.frame frame info, and its text variable is going to be equal to self.var location, and let's do self.label icon, so we can do our current weather icon. So label self.frame info, and there's no image for us to put in it yet, so let's just go ahead and, as like a dummy here, we'll just say that an image is going to go there just so that we can see it's there. And let's go ahead and pack this stuff in. So let's go ahead and say self.frame in, or self.label temp dot pack self.label location pack, and this time we're just going to stack them right on top of each other. Self.label icon dot pack, and for each of these we can give it a pad y of, I don't know, 5 pixels. Why not? So pad y equals 5. Oh, excuse me again. And of course, let's go ahead and pack frame info, and that'll pack it onto our main frame, and we'll call self.create frame info just like this. And if we go ahead and run our application, well, yes, you can see that there are 2 labels here. So let's go ahead and add some dummy text to these as well. So let's see. We'll just say var temp self.var temp dot set to too hot, and self.var location dot set to also too hot, the desert. Okay, so now this should work. And what's going on down here in my little terminal? Okay. Okay, so now you can see some stuff starting to show up on our little application. So this is where the first video is going to end, and we'll pick right back up in the next video to finish the GUI.